So hi everybody, welcome to tonight's webinar. Thank you for everybody who here is live, because I know that it's probably a nice day where you are, it being in the summer. And I also want to welcome anybody who is here listening at the replay a little bit later down the road. So my name is Susan Watson, and I'm a registered dietitian and also what's called a certified intuitive eating counselor. So I'm also the owner of A Little Nutrition, a counseling practice in Manitoba. And I have Andrea Hardy on the call today, and she's my business partner. We have multiple different nutrition collaborations, and I'll give you a little bit of an intro about her. So Andrea is the owner of Ignite Nutrition, and together, you can't see it because our pictures are on the bottom there, but we have a company called Nutrition Academy where we host multiple different courses and workshops as well. So you can see these right here. Right now we have some really good meal planning courses and different resources that you can take a look at. And again, my company name is A Little Nutrition. You can find out our services at alittlenutrition.com. I have a quick disclaimer before we get started. I just want to let you guys all know that this webinar is not meant to diagnose or to be personalized medical recommendations. The material provided on this webinar is intended for educational and informational purposes only. The information here is, again, not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, suggestions, diagnosis, counseling, or treatment of any kind. So now that that's out of the way, I'll go into a little bit about what our workshop is going to cover. And I just wanted to, give you that brief overview. So I have this presentation jam-packed with a lot of good material, and I really value your time, so I don't want you to feel like, this isn't going to be great. It's actually quite impactful. It's got a lot of good information. So I'm going to start off and help you understand, maybe why you're struggling with dieting, and also how it really isn't your fault. So much of our food issues are based on society's expectations. So I'm going to review with you how many people get caught up in the dieting cycle. Then I'm going to talk about the unhealthy side effects that this might be having on your body, and as well as your mind and your metabolism. We're going to go over the 10 different symptoms that you may be experiencing, or maybe have gone through, before you started a diet or after a diet. And I also want to warn you and give you a bit of a heads up that this stuff can get a little bit heavy, especially if it's the first time you're hearing about these symptoms. You might have been living with them your whole life, or maybe this is, going through these different symptoms is a way that you cope with life situations, and hearing about it might be a little bit too much. So I just want to say that's okay, and it's okay to feel that way, and it's okay to feel overwhelmed, but please don't dismiss your feelings. If you put your feelings just in a box and put them on the shelf for the time being, or if you have to do that, then please do so. But just know that we're here for you, and that you're able to repair your relationship with food. It's a bit of a journey, and everybody's journey is going to look a little bit different. So when you start and how you start, there's no best practice for that. The best time to get started on this journey is when you're ready. So finally, I'm going to help you understand that there's no one way about going about this, but one thing that we do know is that when it comes to working with relationship with food, we have a system and a plan for you. So if you stay to the end, we have a special deal that I'm going to offer you on our services, so you don't want to miss out on that. And so we'll get started here. And again, if you have any questions, please pop them in the chat, and we'll go over them at the very end. So my question for you before we get into the workshop is, what brought you here today? I really would like to know, what triggered you to say when you looked at the email that I sent out or any of my marketing, hey, that sounds like me, or, that sounds like a really great workshop, because I really want to cover it today. And if I haven't planned it in the session right now, we can answer it at the end. So in the chat box off to the side here, if you can just, pop into the chat and let me know what brought you here today, what part of this workshop sounded super enticing to you, because I want to make sure that if I haven't built it into this workshop, that we will talk about it at the end. So I would love to know, and I'll give you a few minutes to type into the chat box for some answers. And thank you for all those who filled out the pre-webinar survey that was on the registration. And what I find is that it really helps me prepare for this workshop and understand who's going to be here and who's in the audience. So thank you again for that. If you can pop that into the chat, that would be great. And we'll just keep moving along here.
I'll let you know when it comes in.
Yeah, and that's okay if you don't want to share. That's fine too. I just love to hear, if someone's like, oh, well, I really struggle with emotional eating. I thought this would be, a good topic. So if you want to pop that in, that would be great. So, I want you to think about some of the stuff that I'm going to talk about and ask yourself, does this sound like you? So are you frustrated with going on diets and them not delivering the results that they were promised? So, at first, dieting was fun and exhilarating, and maybe you were part of a group at work or a challenge of sorts, and you thought maybe this one would be the one that would be different, and that this diet would be the one that would make that lasting impact. So you would join that diet, you'd start that diet, and the cycle would start, and time goes on, but then, might lose a little bit of weight, but unfortunately, the weight eventually rebounds and just comes back. So does that sound like you? Or how about, having feelings of being out of control with your eating and feeling, big, intense food cravings and always thinking about food, and, then maybe having strong feelings about guilt and shame associated with consuming that food or with eating. So these are real life complaints that we hear from our clients every week, and it really isn't just you. So don't think that this is an isolated solution and that you're, personally a victim of your own cravings. This is a lot more common than you think.
And
go for it.
Great answers in the chat box now that
okay.
probably really tie into these. So some people are looking for more education on proper eating.
Mm-hmm.
Some people find like it's a good time in their journey towards health.
Mm-hmm.
Some stress eating, it sounds like restrict binge. I think there's a GP in the audience. Some people notice some guilt and shame with eating, a really common one when we moralize food. And then that falling off the wagon. Always ask people, did you fail the diet or did the diet fail you, right?
Absolutely. I know we had an intake a couple days ago, and the person was like, I just need someone to tell me what to do, because if I just do it on my own, it never works and I fall off. And the idea is at the beginning, maybe we'll help you with a bit of a plan, but we don't want you dependent on us. We want you to be empowered within yourself to feel in control of your foods, because often, people have these out of control feelings with eating. So, what many people don't realize is that the process of dieting is what made people feel this way. It's the process of going on a diet. And it's actually a response to the action. So dieting makes people preoccupied with food. It actually is a response. So dieting makes food the enemy, like you can't have this and you can't have that. And dieting makes people feel guilty with eating foods. And surprisingly, even when you're not officially dieting, you'll have these feelings of guilt. So it's really insane. Like, you might not even be on a diet, but you'll feel guilty if you go out for having an ice cream cone with your kids. And, that's horrible. It's like dieting steals a part of yourself and a part of your life away. And the real kicker is that ultimately dieting eventually slows down your metabolism. Like the one thing we don't want to have happen. So you want to really think about, the dieting that you may have done, and if you're considering, a diet in the future, it really isn't something that we're going to recommend. It's because diets suck. And they suck the life out of you. They suck so much enjoyment of food and pleasure out of your life. So with dieting, you waste so much valuable time, and you could be using that time to be focusing on other areas of your life, other areas that you can work on improving your health.
Yeah.
So,
someone commented on the time thing. It's like not just time, it's joy.
Yeah.
Of all the time you spend thinking about food and making the wrong choice or the right choice, when you should just be enjoying yourself.
Yeah, like live in the moment, but be confident about it and not worry so much. So that's what we're going to get in today, and that's what I'm so excited to talk about. So, something to think about. It's the reality that diets don't work. Most experts and consumers accept the idea that, fad diets don't work. Like, oh yeah, I know that. The cabbage soup diet, that doesn't work. But, it's tough for society because, our society is based on body obsession, and people do believe that, sensible dieting, is futile. But they still use that word, sensible. What does sensible dieting, like, what the heck does that even really mean? How can it be sensible? So many of our clients have also had that big diet hope. And this is the hope that this last one diet will be it and somehow be the answer to all their weight struggles. So, even when they come to meet with us, if they're still in that diet mentality, they will think that, tomorrow my life will change. So I'm going to go see the dietitian. And the dietitian is going to tell me what to eat and how much and what to avoid and what never to eat again. And that is what I need. And they think that they need that kick in the pants to finally get on track. And what I'm here to say is that, sorry, that's not really what we do at all. We want you to be in control of your own food choices and empowered to do that. And what we do know is that if at any point, as a dietitian, I tell you what to do, human nature says, I'm not going to do it. It's our nature to rebel. So diets, they're telling you what to do, and ultimately in the short term we might do it, but our innate nature is to rebel. So as a counselor, as a coach, telling you specifically, do this, don't do that, is only going to make you want to rebel down the road, especially if it doesn't fit with you. I mean, granted, we give advice, we give, guidelines and advice around healthy eating, but, tailoring it to what makes sense for your life is really, getting you to make that choice yourself too, and come to that aha moment, like, oh, okay. So, the reality is, diets don't work, and, getting a diet plan from a dietitian isn't really the best way to go. We can help with meal planning, but we're not going to say, follow this X amount of calorie diet and this is going to help you lose all that weight and, get your life back. That's not the case. So, when we take a look at it, what most people don't realize is that most food issues or problematic eating is actually caused by dieting. It actually causes it. And it's a real shocker for a lot of people. So our diet culture and, our society conditions us to think that diets are the answer. But in reality, diets are the problem.
And I think that came up a lot in the chat, is the stress eating, the binge eating, the dieting, or what I would refer to as restrictive eating.
Mm-hmm.
Diets cause the problematic eating behaviors. So, yeah.
It's not, if you just ate normally, you wouldn't have a lot of those issues. It's that restrictive mindset of some sort. So I'm going to talk a little bit here on what the dieting cycle is. So if you've heard of it before, or you might know, but if you really wonder what's going on in your life and why you just can't seem to stick to something, don't worry. the dieting cycle is something that is part of our society and our culture that is rampant wherever you go. So I want you to think about maybe diets that you've done in the past or your own current life as I read this out to you, and you can kind of decide, are you about to go into the diet cycle again? Are you off of it? And figure out how many times you might have gone through this cycle. So, let me explain why diets are the problem using the diet cycle. So as I go through this, think about the last time you went on a diet and how you might have fallen into this diet trap. So the dieting cycle is a trap that many people get caught in after repeated attempts at dieting or restriction of food intake to lose weight. The diet cycle goes like this. You restrict food to try to lose weight. Then you feel deprived and your desire for foods that you are restricting increases. So you're thinking about it more, you're craving about it more. You give in to temptation because it's too hard to stay it that way for too long, and you eat that forbidden food. You might think to yourself, I shouldn't be having this, and you feel guilty about it, and you eat it quickly and you don't have any enjoyment around it. Maybe you're eating it in private or hiding, and you probably eat a lot of the food because you think, what the heck, I've already had this small amount, I might as well have the rest of it, and I've already blown it, sort of thing. And for a short time you might feel better, and then your feelings of guilt make you feel uncomfortable, and you may feel like a failure or angry at yourself, and that you have no willpower to resist. And what we're hopefully going to show you is it's not necessarily about willpower. So then you restrict yourself again to make up for your binge and to pay penance, and then the diet cycle starts all over again because you're starting to restrict. So it's this ongoing cycle that you have to figure out when you're ready to jump off and get off of it. So if this sounds like you, I want you to know that you don't have to live this way. There's a way out. It takes hard work, and you're going to feel like you might be alone at times. And this is because normal eating and anti-dieting is not common in our society. It's a very popular thing to be on a diet, but not dieting is not very popular. But the freedom you will find by learning how to eat normally without guilt, without food restriction, is so freeing that you will wish that you had this peace many, many years ago. So hopefully, this is sounding very, very enticing to you. But you might say, Susan, I know how to eat. I know everything there is to healthy eating. I mean, I've been on X amount of diets. So why can't I lose weight? And, if all we needed to be a normal weight was knowledge about food and nutrition, most people wouldn't have weight concerns. Credible health guidelines and information is readily available. Knowledge is definitely not the problem. I want you to think of this little puzzle that I have here for you. So dieting is like this Chinese finger puzzle. You can put 2 index fingers in, and you can try to pull your fingers out. And the harder you try to get them out, the more pressure you exert, the more effort you're exerting, the more difficult it is to actually get out of the puzzle. And instead you find yourself locked in tighter, trapped, and more frustrated. And ultimately, this is what dieting is really all about. And if that's what it feels like, this is totally normal. So how do you know if you really have an issue with dieting and your relationship with food? That's what this whole workshop is about. So I think the best way I learned how to spot the red flags with a client in session, because not everybody has a relationship with food issue, but Andrea Hardy, who's on the call here, she gave me a great tip because sometimes it's hard to determine. And what she said is that if somebody is expressing moralization around their food or their food choices, this is like the number one thing that kind of will help somebody stand out. So Andrea, would you agree with me? Like you still see, like when you're hearing somebody say like, oh, I felt so bad about eating that chocolate, or
everybody knows I shouldn't do this, but I can't help myself. Everybody knows I shouldn't eat past 8 p.m. because, whatever the reason is, or Oh, I definitely don't eat bananas because they're way too high in sugar and they're really bad for me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
as soon as it ties to the morality of
Mm-hmm.
and our bodies,
Mm-hmm.
as soon as we make our bodies a moral obligation and food a moral obligation, that's when the little red flags go up
Yeah.
for me. I'm like, this could be problematic.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just the language people are using, but I'd say 99% of the time is people
Mm-hmm.
hold things to be truth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, truth that our food choices are um, morally, part of our makeup, and truth
Mm-hmm.
that how our body looks is a moral obligation. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, not
Because
to go on.
food choice is not a moral decision, right?
Mm-mm.
Like it's, if you feel bad about something, like did you rob a bank just because you
Yeah.
had a chocolate bar, right? It shouldn't be a moral decision. It shouldn't be something that's tied to morality. So, what I mean by this is if someone actually feels bad or guilty or has some sort of negative emotion around food, it could be either good or bad, or feelings of guilt around eating something that, they just found delicious. That's for sure a red flag.
It's
Um,
funny. I had somebody say, Andrea, what are 3 foods you'd never eat? And I'm like, unless I'm allergic to it, there is nothing I tell people they can never eat.
I know.
Um, so, yeah.
That's like the party question. Oh, I find out that you're a dietitian.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Yeah. So, all of this robs you of the true enjoyment of food. And without true enjoyment of food, you'll always be wanting more and never truly satisfied. And you'll never actually get out of the cycle. So, you know, we have to have satisfaction with food. And if we don't have that, we'll just be continually going back into that cycle. So, what we have right here is we're going to go into these 10 symptoms of diet backlash. And, if you're not 100% sure if you truly have these side effects from dieting, then, I want you to listen to these next 10 symptoms of dieting. And I'm going to refer to it as dieting backlash. So, if you have a pen and paper handy or maybe your phone and you can pop in the notes section, I want you to jot down as many of the symptoms as you feel like you might have right now or maybe experienced in the past. And, I'm aware not everybody listening here today, who's maybe altered the way they eat, have gone down the spiral of backlash. But, anytime you've gone on a diet, the chances are you likely will have, at least one of these symptoms, because the more diets you've gone on in your life, the more symptoms you may have. So again, I just want to remind you to be kind to yourself as we go through these symptoms. If you've dieted your entire life, you're likely going to have quite a few symptoms, if not all of them. So please don't freak out. Again, these are symptoms that are it's a normal response to dieting, but it's covered up by diet culture. And, all of this can be reversed. So again, please don't freak out. Be kind to yourself, be gentle, and just listen and see how dieting maybe has impacted your life. You may not have all of the symptoms, but even if you have a few, you would definitely benefit from working with a dietitian to help improve your food relationship and also end that yo-yo cycling, because we talked about what will happen. It's not something you want to live with the rest of your life. So diet backlash is the cumulative side effect of dieting. It's everything that's kind of added up. It can be short term, it can be chronic, and depending on how long you've been on a diet, you might just have one side effect or you can have several. So we'll go into the first one here. So symptom number 1, just thinking about going on a diet. So just the thought of going on a diet or some form of restriction leads you to having these strong urges and cravings for foods that are labeled either bad or sinful. So again, just the thought can create these ongoing thoughts that make you, think you got to deny yourself. And these cravings are usually thoughts around foods that might be high in sugar or fat. So for example, I saw that this spring, it might be the winter time and somewhere somebody gets in their head that they got to get their body ready for the summer. So, they haven't started a diet, but they're thinking like, oh yeah, I got to get ready to get Beachbody ready or whatever. And just that thought of going on a diet might trigger you to have thoughts of foods that you're going to deny yourself with. So urges and cravings for sinful foods and fatty favorites such as ice cream or chocolate or cookies, all of this is definitely a symptom. So I'm not going to ask after each one if this sounds like you, but I got 2 polls throughout these symptoms, and I'll pop one up soon. But just ask yourself, like, can you relate to this? Has this been something that you've experienced? So symptom number 2 is you've started a diet, and then maybe you end the diet, and then there happens to be a binge. So you either completed it or you gave up, but now you're free from that list of foods that you can't eat. The good foods and bad foods list is gone. However, you find yourself thinking about those foods all the time, and you end up eating your forbidden food, and usually in an amount that you normally wouldn't recommend or usually eat, so more like a binge. And then you feel guilty. And what's very interesting is that there was one study that indicated that post-dieting binges occur 49% of anybody who ends a diet. So pretty much if you have done a diet before, the chances are when you come off of it, you have a really high likelihood that you'll end up, binge eating. So depriving yourself of certain foods actually increases the urge to have those foods. And what happens is you say, no, I can't have it. And because of human nature, we just keep thinking about it all the time, and then we end up, wanting it more. So there's really nothing good, I'm going to say, about food restriction.
Yeah,
and
the brain catches up.
Yeah.
It's like, I got to catch up for all that I missed.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, I think it's our way of compensating in life. So then we have symptom number 3. So someone who has, chronically dieted will usually have little trust in themselves and little trust in themselves with food. So I've heard this a lot from people. So they'll say to me like, oh yeah, I can't buy that loaf of bread because I don't trust myself, not to eat it all at one time. So have you said that to yourself? Or, oh yeah, I can't have chips or chocolate around me because I'll just completely devour it. So it's understandable because every diet has taught you not to trust your body or trust, the food that you're putting in it or your response to it. It's very external. Follow this, do that. And if you don't do it, that slap on your wrist sort of thing. So dieting actually teaches you not to have trust with your body and your food choices and how it feels in your body. So even though it's the process of dieting that fails you, the failure continues to undermine your relationship with food. So again, see if that kind of resonates with you. If you have foods that you can't be around and you don't trust yourself around, I would definitely say that working with a dietitian on that is something you'd want to do. So symptom number 4 is feelings that you don't deserve to eat because of your weight. And this symptom has to be one of the saddest ones I come across in my practice. And I really just want to reach out and hug anybody who's felt this way. There's so much weight bias out there, especially in the medical community. And, feeling like you don't deserve to eat because of your weight is wrong and horrible. There are people out there living in larger bodies who are literally starving. They've been told to follow a very low calorie diet to lose weight, and the calorie recommendations are well below what they need to thrive. Never mind, the calorie recommendations are well below what somebody of a smaller body size would actually need to survive. It's unjust. And it's not right to feel that you don't deserve to eat because of your body size. And we all need to fuel our bodies to give us energy and power our brains. And it's, not okay to just stop eating. everybody deserves to eat. It's not dependent on body size, no matter what you've heard and no matter what your brain is telling you, because often that's what's happening, is you're telling yourself this. So if this is you, I'm also sure that you'll tell me that, if you ever just stopped eating for a while, it's never ended well. Restriction always leads to periods of overeating. So again, I'm going to pop up the poll right now, and I'd like to hear from you guys. Now, this is a private poll, like you won't see the answers, but if you can go and answer the poll here. Have you ever had feelings of not deserving to eat because of how you felt about your weight? When the poll comes through, I'll let you guys know the results. But if you have, then definitely working with one of us would be good. I'm going to let you add those in and go back to the slides here.
And I think hitting that home, Susan, is what you pointed out, is with dieting, it puts our body in such a restrictive state that somebody in a very small body, those things would qualify as eating disorder behaviors. But in a larger body, or even in like what would be considered quote unquote normative weight, we like champion those behaviors. We look up to them like, oh, that person has such good control or whatever. But those are disordered eating behaviors. It is.
So not or having a very low calorie amount that you eat through the day, and you can sustain it for like a week or so, and everyone's like, yay for you. But that's not something you're going to be able to do lifelong. And
it's terrifying thinking like, oh, I can't keep this up and everybody's complimenting me on it. It gives you this false sense of worth. And then it's terrifying when you can't keep it up.
And then you not only do you feel like a failure, you feel like you're letting everybody else down. It's like, that's not what it should be about. So much peace needed for that. Okay, so symptom number 5. This is, I love bashing rice cakes. Sorry. It's my favorite thing to do, even though I sometimes actually do like rice cakes. But so the shortened dieting duration, and that's basically getting at that the lifespan of a diet gets shorter and shorter. So if this sounds familiar, you start a new diet and you're good for a few days, maybe even a week, and then you blow it or fall off the wagon because somebody at work brought in cakes or cookies that you couldn't resist, right? So you say to yourself, oh, I'll just start again tomorrow. That's my balance in it all. But you know what? Tomorrow never comes. And then you say to yourself, well, I'll start again on Monday. Well, but then Monday never comes. So it's really no wonder, shake and meal replacement companies use a pitch like, oh, just give us a week and we'll, whatever. It's because the more diets you go on, the shorter and shorter the time frame goes, because you just know. So again, if this resonates with you, that is definitely a symptom of diet backlash. Symptom number 6, this is really rampant with people that come to our practice, the Last Supper syndrome. So, every new diet is preceded by consuming foods that you presume you'll never eat again. And, the food consumption might go up during this time, and it may occur over one meal or a couple days. So something like, tomorrow I'm going to start the keto diet. So tonight I'm going to eat all the bread in the house. Or I'm going to start my new diet tomorrow. And, I know what's going to work. So I'm going to go ahead and have that big bowl of pasta now. And because I know after tomorrow, I'm never going to be able to again. So this is like Last Supper syndrome. And I find it really interesting. It's really that final step before dietary cleansing is a big ass farewell to food party, and it always is overconsumption or a binge of the forbidden foods. So if you can relate, or if you've done this before, I'd love to know. But where I see it in a practice is when somebody comes to work with us, we send them a food log to fill out. they'll come to their initial assessment with us, and I'll look at it, and they filled it out for 3 to 5 days before meeting with us, and it's all cake and chocolate. And I'm like, is this how you normally eat? Like, this is a lot of cake and chocolate. And they tell me, no, it's not how I normally eat, but I know because I'm coming to meet with you. I had to get it out of my system because I know you're going to tell me I can't have it and never have it again. You're going to take it away because you're a dietitian. I was like, no, that's not what we do. But I see it a lot. And most people are quite relieved when they come to work with us, like, oh, you're not going to take that away. So it's definitely a symptom of diet backlash. So symptom number 7, social withdrawal. So since going on a diet is super hard to follow, it's even harder to stay on your diet and then go out for a dinner party. A lot of the times it just becomes easier to turn down these social invites. And at first, social food avoidance may seem like the wise thing to do for the good of the diet, right? But eventually it can escalate into bigger problems, and there's often this fear of not being able to stay in control. And it's not uncommon for people to experience this, for it to be, reinforced by saving up all the fat grams or the calories for that party, which basically means being good all day and eating very little throughout the day. But we do know in those scenarios that the amounts that you eat is a lot more than if you had just fueled your body adequately throughout the day. So by the time you get to that party, you have what's called rebound hunger, and you're so ravenous that your hunger dominates eating, and then you feel like you're out of control, and it just, again, that spiral goes down. I'm going to pop up our other poll here, and okay, so our last one here. So there are definitely a few people who felt that they didn't deserve to eat because of their weight. So I'm going to reset the poll here. And the next one here is, have you ever considered not going to a social event because the food, because you're scared to fall off the wagon and you didn't want to fall off the wagon? So if you can just answer yes or no, there's the poll. And I will continue flying through these.
And I find, I'll let you continue.
It's okay.
I was going to say, my brother was supporting his spouse in a diet, and he found, to do that, they had to stop going out. They had to stop getting together with friends. They had to do all these things that sucked the joy out of their life.
Yeah.
So
yeah. You shouldn't be afraid, after working with us, you shouldn't be afraid to go to any food event, be around food, going out with friends, and you're so confident in your food choices that it's meh, it's no big deal.
Or even apathetic. I'm like, oh, it's food. I either eat it or I don't, whatever.
Neutral, apathetic. I love those words. It's just So let's go back to the poll here and see what everyone said. So yeah, it sounds like we got about 56% of people would say yes, and about 44% said no. So, I mean, it's definitely a thing. We'll move to the next slide here. So sluggish metabolism, this is the real kick in the pants, right? So each diet teaches the body to adapt better for the next self-imposed famine or another diet. And your metabolism actually slows as the body, efficiently utilizes every calorie as if it's its last. So the more drastic the diet, the more it pushes the body into this calorie survival mode. So if you want to think about metabolism is fueling your metabolism is like stoking a fire. You remove the wood and the fire diminishes. So, similarly, you fuel your metabolism. We must eat a sufficient amount of calories or our bodies will compensate by slowing down. So a slowed down metabolism as a result of the body adapting to diets. It's just something that happens. The body becomes confused, never knowing what you're going to put it through the next. So again, if that's just the one thing to think about, you don't want to go on a diet because each diet teaches the body to adapt better for the next time for that self-imposed famine. Symptom number 9, using caffeine to survive. So, Coffee and diet drinks are often abused as a management tool to feel energetic while being underfed. So have you ever wondered why most overweight people of those shakes that take shakes and do those diets don't really lose weight? It's because it's not the food that's the issue. It's really their habits and their relationship with food. It doesn't matter if you take an appetite suppressant. If you've got this ingrained habit of eating when you're not hungry or using food to compensate for emotional issues, an appetite suppressant isn't going to help you stop eating, and it's not really going to help anything else change. And the last one here, symptom number 10. Were you going to say something?
Oh, I said it's a big one. I think it's not talked about enough.
No, it's a real shocker that anytime you go on a diet, it really puts you at risk for developing an eating disorder. And eating disorders are very, very difficult to overcome and get help from. So repeated dieting is often a stepping stone or, gateway to an eating disorder. So, it's so innocent when you're at work and everyone's like, oh, we got this weight loss challenge, you want to join? And I'm like, oh, no, it's just knowing that it could be a stepping stone or a gateway. You just want to avoid it. So,
I think the assumption is you have to be in a smaller body to be diagnosed with an eating disorder. But we now know that problematic eating behaviors can exist in the whole spectrum of weight. And eating disorders exist in the whole spectrum of weight. It doesn't matter if you're in a larger body or a smaller body. An eating disorder behavior is, not exclusive of a certain body weight.
You can't look at somebody and be like, yeah, you got an eating disorder. It's hidden. You can't judge by the size of somebody if they have an eating disorder. And it's a lot more prevalent than we actually think that it is. So, after much discussion with Andrea too, we decided that there is an 11th symptom that we wanted to add. And this is a symptom that, many people who have engaged in diet behavior or engaging in diet behavior, they have a hope of that once they lose the weight, something magically is going to change, that their self-esteem is going to improve, or that they're going to have, something in their life really change and improve. And people assume that, dieting is going to give them that better self-esteem, but actually, dieting is associated with a lower self-esteem in the long run, and it can be very counterproductive and dangerous. And Andrea, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, the research is very clear that dieters have lower self-esteem, lower self-worth than those that have never dieted. And we just assume, if I lose the weight, I'm going to love myself. Well, what's to say you can't love yourself exactly as you are right now and work on health behaviors too. Diet culture tells us that we are not good enough in the bodies that we're in and gives us the assumption that if we change them, we're going to be happier people. But happiness isn't based upon weight. It's based upon how we relate to ourselves and many other components.
Absolutely. So, what can one do if they, recognize that they have these symptoms? And, what are the answers? So, the answer is, to learn how to become what's called an intuitive eater. And diets make people focus on using external cues like counting calories, measuring, or weighing. Whereas intuitive eating relies on one's own intuitive ability to know what to eat and how much their body needs. And intuitive eaters learn to manage their eating by using their own individual hunger and fullness cues. It takes a while to practice, but you eventually get to recognizing when you eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full. And they can normalize their eating by embracing those body cues and use mindful eating practices. And intuitive eating embraces all foods and don't rely on diets. Intuitive eaters have made peace with those foods and don't have any foods that they consider are dangerous or off limits or that they can't have because they won't be able to stop eating them. Intuitive eaters use non-diet nutrition that's flexible, that works in any social situation, and they feel energized and fueled with enjoying a variety of foods, and they never actually feel like they're on a diet, because it's definitely not a diet. So letting go of dieting doesn't mean that all food, food becomes a free-for-all. It has everything to do with gaining back a trusting relationship with food and your body. Dieting requires willpower, and willpower is a finite resource. We're not meant to suffer and live in a suffering state, and that's why ultimately we fall or fail or fall off the wagon. So adopting a healthy lifestyle and eating is a lot easier if you have a good relationship with food and is not always reliant on willpower. So intuitive eating actually helps you build what's called skill power. So if you are interested in becoming an intuitive eater or improving your relationship with food, but don't know where to get started, then I have a good webinar deal for you today. So at our practice, we offer a 1.5 hour intuitive eating assessment that gives you an in-depth nutritional and behavioral assessment with recommendations on what principles of intuitive eating would benefit you the most. So my regular price for this session is $185, but for those who are listening to this webinar, either live today or listening to the replay, you can get this 1.5 hour session for the price of our 1 hour session, which is $125, which is $60 off or 30 minutes for free. The only stipulation is that to get this deal, the appointment has to be virtual or on the phone. So you can meet with me on Skype, FaceTime, WhatsApp, or phone, whatever you feel is most comfortable. And it's very much like what we're talking right here. We can see each other and hear each other. So when you book your appointment, you just want to make sure you mention the discount code IE125. So that's Intuitive Eating 125. So you're going to get the 1.5 hour in-depth assessment for the price of the 1 hour session, and you can actually claim this session on your extended medical health insurance if you have dietitian coverage. And if you're in Manitoba, we will direct bill for you, but unfortunately we can only do that in Manitoba. You'll receive your in-depth nutritional and behavioral assessment with recommendations, again with those principles that you should work on. I'm also going to go over the 10 principles and how they apply to your life and your nutrition. You're going to discover what normal eating is and how that applies to your life. You're going to also learn how dieting has interfered with your life. And we're going to look at the past and the present as well. And you'll also learn about that hunger, mind-body connection and how to implement it with your eating. So after this assessment, if you want to embark on an intuitive eating journey, you can choose some of our follow-up packages, or you can, go on your own. There's lots of different options. This is just more so to bring that awareness to maybe where the problems are and where you can get started. So how do the sessions work? Your first appointment is going to be 90 minutes, and you'll receive your nutritional, lifestyle, and behavioral assessment with your recommendations. And after your assessment, you can continue to work with me or one of the other RDs on our team, and they'll help you continue to improve your relationship with food, as well as set some personal goals and help develop this, supportive behavior to help you with your changes. You can purchase one of our 3 or 6 session follow-up packages that also have a variety of different tools to help support you on your journey and improving your relationship with food. Or you can kind of pay as you go when you have time to come in. Or sometimes it, might take you a little bit longer, or you want to, you're really eager to work on your relationship with food. You really can guide your sessions. Or you can take our recommendations from our assessment and work on your relationship with food at your own time, your own pace, and connect back when you're ready. Because, you might find out all this information and be like, yeah, it's not the best time in my life. I got lots of things going on, and you're not ready to, and that's okay. So your assessment may uncover some areas that you're not ready to work on, and we fully support waiting until you're ready to, really work on your relationship with food and be in a good place for all of that. So how do the sessions work? Again, what we do is we start off with assessment, and I have a series of questions that I'm going to ask you that's going to help assess whether you're an intuitive eater or perhaps maybe, the different areas that you need to work on. So this is an assessment tool, and it's validated to use with both men and women, and includes new categories that include body, food, choice congruence, and also uses the the 10th principle of intuitive eating, which is honoring your health with gentle nutrition. So it's definitely new and updated. And you'll also get some personalized recommendations that come out of this. So from the assessment, you're going to find out if you're somebody who doesn't have, doesn't give themselves permission to eat and they're more of a restrictor, or they tend to, maybe you're somebody who eats for physical rather than emotional reasons, or the other way around, you're eating out of stress and emotional reasons versus fueling your body for physical reasons. Or you may not have any idea how to hone in on those internal hunger and fullness cues, and you don't have any trust in your own ability to regulate your fullness levels. And then again, that body food choice congruence. So you may have, one area that needs to be worked on, or maybe all four. And, by the end of our session, you'll know exactly where you need to have some work. And, you might be ready to tackle these issues, or you might want to wait a bit if you're not ready. And not everybody is ready right away. So it's just nice to have the assessment to kind of know, where you're at. And we'll also go over the 10 principles of intuitive eating and how they apply to your life. So usually what I do with a client is after we do the assessment, I'll circle the different areas on the 10 principles sheet and then give that to them. And if they want to work with me to then kind of unpackage those, we can. Or you can also just go to the store, Amazon or Chapters, and buy the Intuitive Eating book by Evelyn Tribole, and you can read that book, and that might be a good place to start as well. You don't necessarily have to work in person. So again, on top of all of that, what I like to give in that 1.5 hours is really help people understand what normal eating is and how that applies to their life. Learn how dieting has interfered with your life, both past and present. And even if you're thinking about still going on diet, how that might impact your future. And really learn about the hunger body mind connection and how to implement this with your eating and manage your fuel. So if you want to book this, go to www.alittlenutrition.com/intuitive-eating. And it will go to our intuitive eating page. And I really encourage you to read over that page first, because it's really will give you an idea about how the sessions work and if this is really something that you're interested in. Because if you're not, then you can read that over and you'll know. And if you are, it might entice you. And when you're ready, just go ahead and click that book a coaching session button. And what it will do is it will take you over to our new client appointment form, and you can fill that out, and that'll give me a little bit more information about what you're looking for, and we can get your file started for you. And again, if you're not ready to do it right now, it's the summer, you might want to do it in the fall, I still encourage you to fill out that form and read over the intuitive eating page, our services. And if you fill out the form right now, you can say I'm interested in something in the fall, but I just wanted to get a file set up, and we'll connect with you in the fall. There's no deadline to get this in. I just wanted to put out this webinar now and share this with you. So I just really want everybody here to know that if dieting has impacted you and you do have a lot of these symptoms, you don't have to live this way. You can gain control over your food choices and how food might feel that you're out of control. You can gain that control back. And you can also resolve those food cravings that you might find problematic. And I can definitely help with you with any of those areas that you feel like food might be impacting your relationship with food. So stay tuned. Also, before we end, I just wanted to let you know of some upcoming workshops we have. So I've got one that's going to be called Curb Your Cravings, and we're also going to do a virtual grocery store. And then Andrew and I have a workshop. It's going to be a multi-session workshop in the fall called Have Your Cake and Eat It Too, which is going to be really great. It's going to be a bigger course on food relationship and mindful eating practices. So again, I'm Susan Watson, intuitive eating counselor, registered dietitian, and owner of A Little Nutrition. I help people end the dieting cycle, stop overeating, and understand how food cravings work in their body and how to manage them. So if you want to get in touch with me, please feel free to do so. You can go to our website at www.alittlenutrition.com, or you can check out our courses at nutritionacademy.co, or you can email me at susan@alittlenutrition.com. So that's the end of the presentation. Thank you very much for attending. Let's get to some of those questions.